All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining this call. I'm psyched to have this conversation. I get the privilege of getting to talk to all three of you all the time. To have you all in one call means a ton to me. I am the COO at Faraday, so I get to interact with all of you. But I thought we could start by doing a round of introductions, and then we'll kick off the real conversation. Eric, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Eric Kozak, I'm the performance marketing leader for American Standard, LIXIL, if you will, specifically for their home services division, which is, a pretty growing business in terms of how LIXIL approaches the plumbing industry in the market.
Awesome. And Jason?
Hi, I'm Jason Shatzkamer, CEO and co-founder at Outbound IQ. We are a software platform that integrates with dialing platforms to help optimize and maximize contact rates.
Awesome. Mandy?
Well, actually, there's a fifth character here right behind you, Eric. I think we need the name of this beautiful pooch behind you. What's that?
That's my coworker, Freya. I just noticed her when I looked at my screen and saw her just head bowed down. That's pretty much her pose normally. So
Right.
that's the speed in which she operates.
Love it. Love it. I'm Andy Rossmeissl. I'm the CEO and one of the founders here at Faraday. Spent a lot of time on the technical and product side of the company. Look forward to getting you to this chat. Thanks for having me, Robin.
Awesome. So I think the goal of today's call is mostly to hear, Eric, your story of bringing together both Outbound IQ and Faraday. And so I thought we could start by you sharing a little bit of context of you came back to American Standard LIXIL. You had kind of a new remit in front of you. Tell us kind of what were the top things that you were trying to solve and kind of how did this cast of characters get into one room?
If I was doing my prioritization, I would have done it far sooner. But this is actually my second tenure with American Standard. I was with American Standard 10 years prior to this, and was specifically brought in to build this home services group. So when I joined American Standard, the home services business was operating in one specific DMA in all of America, and was maybe selling like $10,000 worth of sales a month, right? Absurdly small. And the trick is in over, my first half of that first tenure was to how to quickly scale and build the business. And with home services, right? You're building a three-prong approach. The approach is essentially lead generation and marketing, right? Honing your capabilities and your core competency within that. And then you've got your sales, which is a team that's going out and outreaching and meeting with customers and kind of selling into the home, the products and packages that we offer. And the third is the installation, for the installation of the product. And those are the three components to the business, but there's one that's not really often talked about was the consumer journey and the customer journey, right? How do you go from a lead to a sales operation that then gets translated into an install team? So that journey, is sort of underscored as maybe a less focused area that we tended to look at, but at the time it was okay. You put everything into a call center and they call leads and then you schedule appointments and that's the way this goes. I mean, that works when the business is rapidly growing and the latent demand for your product is through the roof and the marketplace is not congested, because the spillage and guess the inefficiencies that you have in that funnel were easily outweighed by the opportunity and the volume that you're driving. Now, fast forward, into my second tenure, you got a seasoned business. Now we're grown to a national group, and we're out there in the marketplace, and we're covering pretty much all of the United States. However, the business has evolved in many ways since its growth period to its period where it's at now, right? So sales got better and install teams are getting better. They're reducing cycle times, all those other things. But what hasn't been, remember, it's been underlooked, is the customer journey funnel and how we actually get to those leads. And now, because the marketplace is more congested and you've got a lot of competition that's out there in the marketplace, and you've got less latent demand than you had prior, you have to spend time and focus on what does that journey look like and how can you improve it. And that was sort of where I started to look for ways to improve it. And that's how I started to engage with you all, because we could generate as many leads as we possibly can and have the best sales team in the world and be able to install things in 1 to 2 days. It doesn't necessarily work if you're not investing into the customer journey funnel to prioritize the leads that are going to be able to convert the best and be able to utilize technology and tools that are going to be able to combat this growing atrophy that's happening within conversion rates. And I'm talking specifically in a contact center standpoint, right? But fundamentally, the two partners that you all are help to solve those things. And as a new leader jumping into the business, again, for the second time in a row, you're getting a lot of learn and observes. You're like, hey, we need this, and you're taking feedback from everyone. And sort of like in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, okay, we need to do more of this, we need to do more of this. In the back of my mind, I'm like, nobody's talking about the journey. No one is talking about how these leads are translating into it. So then I started to dig in, like, what's changed? What's happened? And it's like, well, nothing's changed. Okay, well, nothing's changed, but what, it has to change. There's way more competition in the marketplace. There's way more this, there's way more that. You can't have this growing bucket of leaky, this leaky bucket that's happening because it doesn't work anymore. Competition is too fierce. The marketplace is too congested, and the compliance issues and the policies around what you can and cannot dial have fundamentally changed. You have to do the more and the most with what you have before you can accelerate anymore, because otherwise it's just a loss leader, right? You're at a zero sum to the bottom, putting more gasoline onto sorry, I'm not supposed to speak in metaphors, but right, if we can use a car, right, you're putting more gasoline in the car, but the oil's leaking, right? Or the gas tank's leaking. So you're just not going to keep doing it. It's just way expensive, right? It'll drive, but then, So that's where these partnerships came up. And as I started to realize things like, oh, we need a new agency, we need to run national print, or we need to run national TV commercials. Yeah, all things we need to do. But before we need to fix the conversion funnel first. And I didn't prioritize that because I actually was more learning and observing and prioritizing the feedback stuff without going off of what I thought was fundamentally going to fix the business. But if we fast forward to where we are now, the things that are fixing the business and driving the business to improvements is the customer journey. It isn't an agency. It isn't this. It isn't like, whether you're running print. It's how you're treating those leads. So, yeah.
I love it. And I want to start to get into the actual solution you have in place. But before that, I'd love to hear Jason and Andy, as you're hearing Eric speak, what are the pieces that you'd underline of this is the widespread piece that we hear over and over again, kind of hearing from each of you, talking to a lot of different folks in the industry, curious to get kind of what are you underlining and what Eric has shared.
Yeah. So, again, I like a lot of the words and a lot of the messaging that I was hearing coming from Eric. It's part of the reason that him and American Standard have been such incredible customers for us and incredible partners for us, right? An incredible team to work with, because it's constant innovation and it's constant change and it's a constant quest for efficiency and to be better. And if there's one thing that you've heard come out of my mouth over and over and over again across our customer base, it's simply that it's be better. Like reaching people, and I don't just mean showing up on their screen. I mean reaching people, connecting with them, earning their trust, and advancing them down the process is harder than it's ever been before across all any kind of outreach efforts. I don't care if it's patient notifications or billing or home projects, doesn't matter. But in home projects specifically, it's expounded by his other point, which is that it's never been more competitive ever. And when you were an American Standard, you were a blue chip name who you were a monster competing against children. Now you're a monster competing against other monsters. And so, again, so at the end, I think anything that you can do, to be smarter, to be better, to be more precise, to be more accurate, to meet the customer where they need to be met at the time that they need to be met, game changer. And, you talk about compliance too. And I'm going to tell you that a bulk of the compliance risk that we see out there in the marketplace is because people are inefficient at doing just that. And so because they've failed, and again, I'm not saying that, there are some cases where it's customer driven, but many times it's failure and execution on the part of the caller, on the part of the person doing the outreach or buying the lead. And that results in longer call times, lower contact rates, more frequent dials, more frequent texts, more frequent things, which is where you find your compliance pain. All of the problems that you see upstream and downstream get solved by being better. So, to back to the car analogy, right? We talked about Eric's engine. We've talked about the dialer itself and making sure that that thing and the different third-party systems that are integrated with it are all operating perfectly. The engine itself, the car itself is right there on the track, ready to go. At that point, it's who's driving it, what kind of information is being funneled into the team, who's repairing it when it breaks, and to the point where we connect Faraday here. And the thing that was really exciting from my side is better and better and better fuel. And how do we make sure that the fuel that we're putting in this race car is better fuel than all of the other teams on the track? Because when everything else is operating equally, that'll be my difference maker. I love it.
That's right on, Jason. Yeah, you guys are both making really important points that we see as consistent opportunities across all the different verticals we work in, but especially in home services. And I think, an important thing that I've realized is that there is a difference between a CRM record, which is what a lot of people think about when they think about lead, and like that person you're talking about, Jason, or that journey you're talking about, Eric. And the difference for people listening who are struggling to cross that divide, the difference is context. It's not just this is a phone number. This is a phone number with a family and needs, and they live in this kind of a place and this house, and these are their priorities in life. Because without that context, it's just the CRM record. It's just a phone number getting sent to a contact center without, any sense of who's top priority, how should we engage these people, what products or services should we be offering them. It's just like an incredibly immature, step in thinking about data-driven marketing and thinking about automation-driven marketing. That's where a lot of, brands are today. Even though it's 2025 and we've had data warehouses for a long time and we've had automation for a long time, it's that final last mile of rethinking about the whole thing as a journey through the addition of context. And that's, Faraday is about to turn 13 tomorrow, actually. It's our birthday. And that's been our, that's been our mission at Faraday for all of these years, is how can we add the right context into the equation to transform what would otherwise be a routine kind of, pro forma engagement into one that really feels like helping people along a journey. And that's what, American Standard is really excelling at these days. And we're proud to be a partner in this new work.
I think it's perfect. Yeah, go for it. Because I was going to ask.
I don't know if we're excelling, but we're making our journey better, and the results have been, transformational for us. Yeah.
So can we unpack it a little? Because I'm going to call out and maybe bring a little heat here. Eric, when you and I first talked on your second version back to American Standard, it wasn't like you were an immediate convert to the concept of a lead score or predictive data or this kind of context level. And I'm curious, I think that was really actually important, because one of the first calls we had, you very quickly did shift and evolve. But I think that's a place that many people are at of like, how do I take this data and actually make it into fuel? And could you help kind of talk about that evolution? Like, gloves can be off here, because I think that you and I had a pretty interesting conversation that really sparked the rest of kind of like where you have taken this and how you connected the dots between these two companies. And I think shedding some light would be helpful.
Yeah. And, I've been doing this for a while now, and we probably all have been doing this for a while now. So I always approach, conversations just with a little bit of like, okay, well, what's it really doing? And for us, right, it was about how we were doing it, right? It was an existing vendor that was being used by American Standard for a while. They had set it up during my departure, where I went and joined another organization and led customer acquisition. So when I got back, I looked at, vendor lists and where gaps are. And of course, I'm like, okay, well, what is this vendor doing? And it's like, well, and again, context of like how we were using it was like, oh, well, they just, they block leads for us. We buy leads and then they block them. And then, that's what they do.
A lead blocker.
I'm like, okay, a lead blocker. And I'm like, well, we have active prospect and lead conduit. We have all these different other tech partners that's an easy thing to accomplish. Why do you need a separate vendor for this? Or conversely, do you even really need to block them? Like, what if you just let them through and, you just were buying all the leads, and then maybe at the end of the month, you just sent somebody a list and said, these leads were no good, or whatever the case is, right? So my challenge was, Robin, when we first got on that call, I'm like, what's your value? Like, what's the value for Faraday? Because to me, if that was the value that we were doing and that was the endpoint of that value, I would have been like, well, we can do this in other ways. But what I quickly learned is that like the execution of Faraday was so limited in how we had begun to utilize you. And, so then we had to unpack it. Like, how can we understand how we can utilize this more? And as I started to realize the true capabilities, I literally transformed the whole customer journey to be a centralized focus around Faraday. So at the heart of what we do, it is Faraday driving the modeling for that customer journey in a way that brings us to the most qualified leads that we can at the quickest amount of time. And it goes across the entire organization, right? It's how we dial. And Jason, thank you so much for setting up our campaigns with the Faraday score utilization and all of your work in that, right? But that's sort of like, there's a huge transformational moment. Then it was like, okay, well, what else can Faraday do? And we found target value score as a application that we can do. Executing that has brought us to our lowest credit declines that we have ever been at all fiscal year, hands down. So then it's like, okay, well, how do you prioritize your sales team to put your best sales teams in front of it? And I haven't talked to you about this, but what we did was we actually took the target value score, which is now passed through in the data. And then we say, okay, well, everybody that's high target value score, they're going to our best reps. And the ones that are, all things considered, if they're in the same market, the ones that are like lower target value score, they're going to the reps that might need a little bit of coaching opportunity, right? So not overnight, but like very quickly in rapid succession, instead of using it as this sort of ancillary service that, this is what they do, it quickly became the heart and I'm telling you, the beating heart of the organization and how we execute. And I don't mean to make this like a commercial or anything, but like, that's literally what happened. And it literally is the how we transformed, and the results have been transformational.
I love how you broke it down into its pieces too, in terms of optimizing the agents, optimizing the records, putting them into the right campaigns, putting them through the right journeys. Like, because ultimately, I think when people see a lot of these stories and hear a lot of this feedback, it's like, well, they implemented Faraday and they implemented Outbound IQ and they did orders of magnitude better. And okay, sure, there's a segment of the population that will get that just based on using things unaltered, and yeah, they're definitely going to get their lift, but it's nothing like the amount of effort that you guys have put in at all these different levels and what a difference that makes to the end outcome, and what I'd like people to take away from everything that you just said is that little piece where you broke it down into some of those little examples of things that were done to leverage the score, to leverage the dialer, to leverage the capabilities of these systems, because real meaningful change and real meaningful lift and all of that stuff, it doesn't happen like a home run. It's not like we did this and all of a sudden we were great. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if that's the way life worked? But it isn't. It's a series of base hits, a series of enhancements and optimizations and things that once in summation, it winds up being transformational, but individually, not as much. So I like it that you even took the time to break some of those things down, because I did not want that to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, man, it's an enormous amount of hard work, right? I mean, it is a decision you're making for your business to not think in terms of, ultra simplistic, records and CRMs, but as journeys. Is like, it is hard, and
Yes.
it takes, we're lucky because we're math nerds here, right? It's all we do here is, we process data to draw mathematical conclusions that can be used in context to do things. But the words used in context is like doing so much work in that sentence, right? I mean, we need to be able to give those scores to somebody like Jason and his team to actually put it into the dialer, right? And know when to call and what order and those things. And then we're all reliant on Eric to be putting the pieces together throughout the whole organization. Because where this really falls apart is like, if we're scoring leads and it's being used for one slice of the journey, but then, after that, they're treated homogenously, it's such a wasted opportunity. And when you can actually use this context across the whole journey, it's so much, it's greater than the sum of all those parts.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think for some organizations, it can be a little daunting to take that leap, which is why we're so lucky to have good examples like American Standard to say, okay, look, it's hard. It's not impossible. You use vendors. There's a lot of in-house coordination you have to do too, but like it can be done. And really inspiring to see the results you've produced, Eric.
Yeah, I also want to take a quick minute just to recognize Outbound IQ as well, right? Because transformation happened there as well. And old school call center mentality and leadership within the business is like, you make a bunch of dials, and that's the measure of your success. You make all these dials. And, when I walked through the contact center, it was astounding the silence that I was hearing. And I was like, but we're making 20,000 dials a day, but it's silent in there.
Yeah.
Because we weren't making contact with anyone, right? And we had to change that. And this is where Outbound IQ came in, is right. Okay, so we know that we need to prioritize the best leads first. And we need to prioritize the best, dialing speed to lead campaigns for those leads that are best leads first. But we also need the tools and technology that are able to allow us to make contact. And so implementing Outbound IQ was great, but also unveiled sort of a lot of like ugly truths about where we were, right? In a business, right? It's always like, striving for efficiency. So there's headcount reduction and all this other stuff, right? That happens. And then so you end up, a 60-person call center, now you have a 35-person call center, whatever the case is, and you're down a bunch of people. So of course, what happens, you implement technology that allows you to actually speak to customers. What happens? suddenly things change.
Yeah.
There's all this stuff that's happening. We're talking to people on the phone. We're coming alive in the conversations. We're setting appointments. We're talking to people, but the dial count is down. And we're like, oh my God, why is the dial count down? Why is this? Well, it's because we're talking to people. You never did that before. You were never talking to people before. So you may have had a Faraday score of a lead of 100 or the best possible lead score that you have. But if you couldn't talk to them, what good is it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the 1-2 punch here is very important. So that sort of unlocked, right? Okay. And Jason is always great about this is saying, you know, the measure of success is not the amount of dials that you can make. It is about the contacts that you can make and the conversations that you can have, right? If you can win on both counts and keep your dial counts up and keep your contact rate up, that is the ideal scenario. But that requires bandwidth and it requires, you know, staffing.
It doesn't happen by accident.
Doesn't happen by accident.
That much I can tell you for sure.
Yeah.
Eric, that's such an evocative image of like a silent contact center, right? Like, are you making this up or did you actually like have a moment like that?
No, I really had a moment like that. I mean, it's not just me. I mean, other people would walk through our guests would walk through and we'd be like, and this is our contact center. And we'd be like,
they're doing a lot of texting, I guess.
What's funny about that is right behind me, like our office, literally behind the wall, behind me is a 200-seat contact center. They're one of our customers. They've actually used every bit of software that I personally have ever written, like over the course of my career. We're very close with them. They're good people, but they're my beta customer. And I'm going to tell you that when I release something, I open the doors behind me and I listen. And I can tell you just by the sound whether that was a good change or a bad change, whether I should revert or continue forwards. It's almost like reading the Matrix. When you get intimate with your center, contact, you can tell everything.
Wow. Yeah. So Eric, what is that? I'm curious, like what that does to the vibe in the company when the contact center goes from quiet to loud. You know, is that like a huge change for people?
Well, you know, I'm part of the active thread of all the contact center agents, and I monitored it in real time, right? And so, you know, quiet thread, it's like quiet suddenly. It's like emojis are popping up, and people are just, let's go and go set that appointment, and the energy just goes through the roof because, you know, this is a very, very, very challenging job. Not everybody can do that, and you have to have some wins and talk to some people in order to have the energy for the next day to be able to do it. So, you know, turnover is down and the energy is through the roof and the people are encouraging each other. And that sort of unquantifiable kind of morale boost is really critical for a contact center. And, you know, the leaders, the team leads and the people within the business have to be champions of that culture of high energy. But it also has to happen through conversion success as well. And so that conversion success happens when you put the right people based on your Faraday score as a prioritized cue in how you nurture your leads. And you combine that with the ability to talk to them in meaningful conversations. That is where you get the outcome. So suddenly it was like, how quickly can we staff up and how quickly can we do this? And, you know, we're experimenting with some solutions that help us drive automation into our contact centers. And I mean, you know, Jason and his team have gone above and beyond anything for helping us in our ability to kind of test and learn and drive the functionality. But that automation and the structure of how we're driving that is centered again around the Faraday applications of our lead scores. And who do we want to automate a customer journey for, and who do we need to talk to in person?
I want to understand that 1-2 punch piece, because I think that was a key part of this recipe. Was Eric, you and Jason already working together so that you could ingest the Faraday score? Is that your felt experience of it too? Because Jason, I know the first time you got introduced to us, Eric connected to us too, and you were skeptical.
Totally.
Well, so like.
Oh, yeah. I even talked to Eric. I tried to talk Eric out of it. He's like, oh, we should build it around the Faraday score. And I'm like, why don't we go a little slower? Like, why don't we experiment like this and see if? And he's like, no, I'm confident. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, we've also made these changes to the dialer, and maybe it's a self-creating. And then he produced data going back to 2024. And I was like, okay, you got my eyebrow raised. And again, just watching the consistency of the stats. And, Eric, this is something you don't know, but shortly after our engagement, because again, I mean, I'm still a skeptic. And so we went and we deployed a pilot of Faraday and our friends next door. And do you know what we found? They knew it was going to convert before the call center knew it was going to convert.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that's a magical superpower. That is a magical superpower, to be able to look at data coming in and to say, this is going to convert better than that. It is a game changer for an industry based on consumer outreach whose sole purpose should be being better. There's no excuse. If you have the ability to know this, there's no excuse.
Data-driven marketing, which is really what we're talking about. It's for us. It's about having that. I don't know. I got to use a metaphor or an analogy, but that magic 8-ball, right?
Earmuffs then.
Yeah. How likely is this lead to converge? Shake the magic 8-ball up and flip it over. And having that ability to be able to do that.
Because I've heard them say things like, well, yeah, that's like assuming we could ever know what's going to convert before we buy it. You hear that all the time, like in jest. And it's like, did we just mathematically show that they do know what's going to convert before you do? I think we did.
But Jason, I think an important aspect of this is it's only because they're using a system like yours that is able to govern experimentation, right? And actually track rates and things like that. Like, we love skeptics here. They're our favorite users because it isn't actually a magic 8-ball. It's a math 8-ball. And, really it takes experimental frameworks. It takes teams who are data-driven and who are results-oriented to actually even really realize. Like, one of the most frustrating things is when we have a client where, like, we have a gut feeling things are working really well for them, but because they don't have the skepticism and analytical framework, we can't prove it, right? So we love the skeptics and anybody who's thinking about rolling out lead scoring, regardless of whether you're using Faraday or a different vendor. It's the most important thing. You can't manage what you don't measure, and like having an experimental partner like Outbound IQ, having a leader like Eric who understands how important the actual numbers are is just as big a part of the equation as having the right equations.
So 5.9 or they sell their service to thousands of customers. Some of them can't get their foot off the ground. Other ones build the top 5 companies in the world on the same exact platform. One of them will tell you it doesn't work, it's broken. The other one is leading the country in their respective industries, again, using the exact same platform. So I ask you, in a world of stock cars with 35 identical cars on the track, all of them measured to be a millimeter apart, with one of 3 different engines only, and the same exact tires by law, right? Why does one of them keep winning? I think we all know why. And ultimately, that's where this turns back to Eric. Like, we've got lots of customers. They're the one that we're standing up here talking about, the home run that they hit was yours. And again, that was you at the plate. It was our bat. It was Faraday's ball. You can call it whatever you want, but that was you swinging the bat. So I don't want to take too much credit for this, because ultimately it happened around you for a reason.
Exactly right.
with that note, Eric, I'm curious, where do you envision what comes next? Where can we all support you as you kind of keep plotting this next kind of vision into 2026?
Yeah, it's it's staying up to date with the current applications that we have and executing the nuances of how we can kind of optimize that journey and that funnel based on the things that we've deployed so far. And the second part is probably around we don't we and I think this is the case for most brands is we feel like most brand managers or marketers will say, I know my customer. And I know my customer inside and out, and it's this and it's that. And I kind of think the same thing, right? And so, okay, we know our customer. And so if we know our customer, then that's how we're going to go to market because we think we know our customer, and that's how the creative is going to be tailored and all these other things, right? There was a study done a couple of years ago that said, surprised performance marketers where the number one key driver for ROI for your advertising spend wasn't budget, it wasn't media placement, it wasn't rates, it was creative. Well, if creative is your number one key driver for your ad spend, which is the lifeblood of any kind of lead generation business, how much time and effort do we really spend to align our creative to who that customer really is? And I would argue that it's an afterthought for most marketers because we go, okay, I really like it, and the colors are good, and I like the way that person delivered the line, or if it's a TV show or whatever the case, or TV commercial. But is it truly aligned up to that persona? And if creative is the key driver, we better pay attention to it.
And this goes, and watch how deep this goes, right? So we've been experimenting and working with American Standard, even down to the level of creating custom voices for the IVR, which allows them to be the correct persona for the correct person at that particular stage of their journey in terms of inflection, pauses, tone of voice, male, female. Like, the options that you have at your fingertips today, the technologies, Faraday, Outbound IQ, voice, invoice, the AI agents, like the ability to do all of it. You've never had more opportunities to be better in the lifetime of the industry.
Dude, Jason, we have another client with a call center, and they personalize the hold music.
Yeah,
based on
absolutely
the persona of the person.
Why not?
Why not? Why not?
And again, that's the thing, right? If you say we're perfect, I'm going to tell you you're not looking hard enough.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Robin, right? It's we need to engage with you to understand who truly our customers are and get away from this mindset that we think that we know them. So don't think that that's truly the case. At least if you talk to 10 people within an organization, they might tell you different things about who their customer, and they might slam their fist down and say, I know that I am right about this, but I don't think that they are. And I'm including myself in this. And so we need data to be able to understand who that is. The second is, and this happens a lot in this type of business, or really in any kind of home services business, is like, okay, where should we spend our efforts? Well, we should spend them in Chicago. Well, why Chicago? Well, I've got a great sales guy there. Okay. Well, so then, depending on whose voice is the loudest in the room, right? You walk away and you go, I guess we're going to focus on spending money in Chicago because there's a great sales guy there. Okay. But is that where the market opportunity really is? Because I don't really know. I mean, our data is kind of been the case, and it doesn't even help my case because it's all based on because I've got a good guy there kind of scenarios, right? So okay, we're putting money in LA and Chicago and all that. But well, where is the customer and where's the opportunity? Because I think the mindset, and this is where I need us to focus, is I'd rather find the areas of absolute opportunity based on knowing who our customer is and attacking that and getting a good guy there and establishing the infrastructure around those opportunities so you can harness it in a way that drives the volume. Because, I mean, and nothing about really any specific market, but like, I mean, the opportunity size in, Maine and Vermont is not as large as LA or California, right? The numbers are much larger, but yet maybe we're focusing on those areas where there's less opportunity because that's where the good guy is, right? Or good person is. And that's where I really need to get to, right? Understanding the customer, where they live, and executing around that. And that is establishing that centralized marketing communication about inherently knowing the customer and the opportunity size and developing the plan of attack on it. We've talked a lot about the customer journey. This is more about on the front end, right? About how we structure our pre-journey efforts. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to go through that market opportunity analysis with you because I think it gets at all those pieces. I am also curious, just in the interest of time, Jason and Andy, are there any other pieces based on what's kind of on your product roadmaps that you want Eric to know about as kind of a teaser as we close out this session? I could talk all day, by the way. This is like my favorite conversation, but I'll leave it with that.
No parting words. I mean, I think we've said enough. At the end of the day, this is ultimately about, to Eric's point, making the most out of every single thing that's coming across your plate. It's like a manufacturing operation. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as wasted material. That just becomes tomorrow's production material. Like there's no room for error in the professional race that everybody's engaged in home improvement today. That's just a fact. Everybody has a call center, and if it's not theirs, it's outsourced. Everybody has a dialer. And so ultimately, these are not the things that differentiate you anymore from your competitors. It's everything else.
Yeah, Jason, that's right on. And, I would just say again, for me, it's just all about context, right? It's that's the bridge to the kind of maturity that we see from American Standard and other clients like this. Is you need the tools, you need the determination and the vision to think architecturally about journeys, but then you need to hydrate that whole framework with data. And it's really, you need all those parts, three legs of the stool, and that's why we're so lucky to the three of us have gotten together on this, because these kind of results, need all three parts.
Yeah, I love it. And the best part about it is that, what's going to work for American Standard will be totally different than what's going to work for, another bath company servicing the same markets. Like, 753 customers we have on board our platform right now. A good portion of them are in home improvement. A good portion of those are in bath. There's no two that are the same.
Yep.
Same lead sources, same everything, same dialer. No two are the same.
100%.
Yeah.
Eric, any other parting words, things you need to make sure you get into this conversation?
Well, couple of things that I would just say is, I'm just going to leave two simple things, right? One is that if we can focus on our highest Faraday scores and prioritize our highest Faraday score leads, at least for our business, we
Um,
have unquestionable evidence that they will close higher by a 3 times margin. 3 times more likely to convert into a sale when you
um,
focus on your highest Faraday scores than if you don't.
um,
And if you implement technology and you focus on
um,
improving the contact rate,
um,
you can lift your ability to make contact with customers. I think I'm looking at it today, right? Our contact rate is 20%. This time, well, last year or prior to implementing outbound ANI, we were at 5.56%. That means, okay, take 60,000 leads, and we made contact with 5.56% of them. That's the reason why you have a silent call center, right? This is the same leads, right? In fact, we wouldn't do it anything different, right? It's the same leads, but how we approach that investment into closing those funnels is knowing who your customer is from a scoring perspective, prioritizing them because you know that we have a 3-to-1 better odds at making that conversion happen. And it all starts with being able to talk to the customer. And the way you talk to a customer is establishing a contact rate. So, that's my 2 things for you all is just the impact that you've had on the business.
It warms my heart to hear it. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
This was so much fun. Thanks so much for the good conversation.
Yeah. Thanks again,
Guys,
everyone.
Take care. It's great hanging out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.